right. Good evening. Welcome to our School Ready webinar. We are so excited to see all of you participating with us here tonight. So I just want to take a minute and have the three of us introduce ourselves to all of you. My name is Dr. Aimee Ketchum. I am a pediatric occupational therapist. I practice in the neonatal intensive care unit at UPMC Hospital. I am in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and I have two daughters that are just recent graduates of college. So mine are much older than many of your children. And I just left my teaching position at Cedar Crest College, where I taught early child development in the doctoral program. I'm now doing more consulting and more specific work in the early childhood world. So I am very excited to see all of you joining us tonight. We would love if everybody would go to the chat and type in where you're joining from, where you live, and maybe tell us the ages of your children so we have a little idea of our audience tonight. And I'm going to hand it over to Allison to introduce herself next.
Thank you, Aimee. And hi, everyone. Thanks so much again for being here tonight. My name is Allison Jandu. For those of you who don't know me already, I am the owner and founder of Potty Training Consultant, and we help families to overcome their potty training hurdles. So we very proudly worked with over 12,000 families to help them potty train their kiddos of all ages and abilities. And I'm just very excited to be here tonight because I know that potty training is one of those things that you really have to have nailed before you send your kiddo off to school in a lot of cases. And I hope to be able to share some strategies with you guys tonight that you can take over into the school world and make potty training a little bit easier. So thank you guys for being here tonight. Sarah, do you want to go?
Sure. Thanks, Allison. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Bossio. I am the owner and lead pediatric sleep expert at Your Zen Baby Sleep. And we help parents with children ages 0 all the way up through 8 years old to get their sleep on track. So if you are an exhausted parent who feels a little lost and confused by all of the wonderful but overwhelming resources that the internet provides, we are a really great resource to come to, and this is going to be a really great workshop to teach you all about how to get your sleep back on track, because I know summer sleep can be a little wonky and chaotic, as it is in my house right now with my own 2 children. To my practice, I bring over 15 years of experience in the special ed classroom and a certification in behavior analysis. So I love my littles. I love helping everyone with their behavior, and I love sleep and getting you more of it. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand it back to Aimee, and we'll get started with our presentation.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So I'm seeing quite a variety in our attendance here tonight. We have some from early intervention. We have pediatric physical therapists. We have someone from Nurse Family Partnership. Love Nurse Family Partnership. Some parent to parent. We have a lot of people I see in Pennsylvania. We are so excited to have you all. So the way we're going to do this tonight, I'm going to be talking about those early developmental milestones and what we want to see for children when they start kindergarten or preschool. My business is Aimee's Babies, and tonight later at the end, I will be giving you a link to one of my resources that is free that you can sign up for just basic parent education and preparing for that next step. So if you want to advance the slide, Allison, and we'll get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is emotional intelligence. So when I say emotional intelligence, I'm talking about a child's ability to relate to others, be able to read social cues from other people, showing some empathy, being able to share and cooperate and resolve conflicts that might arise. So what's really important here is turn taking. This is something you can model at home for those of you who are parents of the little ones before they go off to school, or if you work in a school environment or a therapist, these are things you can absolutely model during everyday activities and routines and games. Play games that are naturally set up for turn taking, like Candyland or card games. It's sometimes a really good idea to actually use a visual cue when you're doing turn taking. Perhaps you have a microphone and you actually talk and then hand it to the child so they have some tangible way that they can see that turn taking is taking place so they can practice those skills. And when you see a child wait and take their turn to speak or to do an activity, definitely take a minute to praise that. Let them know that you've acknowledged that and that you see that and that that's an important part. When it comes to sharing, kind of talk in the language that promotes sharing, like using words like, let's do this together, let's build this together. So they're working on shared experiences even before they go off to school. You definitely want to model generosity with your sharing. Like, look, I'm going to share half of my cookie with you, or I'm going to give half of my cookie to daddy. So you can model those things so they see what sharing is and how it makes people happy. When I talk about cooperating, I'm talking about sort of teamwork tasks that you can do at home or in childcare environments, like setting the table all together or doing a cooking activity together, and really emphasizing that cooperating and working together and collaborating, and even using those words with young children so they have that understanding when they get into school. Playing cooperative games is really great. Not putting emphasis on winning or losing, but sort of working together, like working together to do a scavenger hunt or relay races or things like that, where children need to work together. And you also want to kind of model that problem solving language, like how can we work together to get this done? We want to encourage resolving conflict by really using statements that help the child to express their own emotions, like, I feel so and so, encouraging them to use that type of language and giving them the language to talk about the things that are challenging for them. Like, instead of just having a temper tantrum, saying, I feel upset when this happens, and kind of coaching them through and giving them the language to do that. Of course, there's going to be disagreements and they're not going to know how to handle those, but you could role play this stuff at home with dolls or stuffed animals or puppets. You could actually do little role plays and say, okay, he pushed, the puppy pushed the panda bear. How might he respond? And what might he say? And how can we make sure this doesn't happen again? And you can talk through that language to make them understand. When it comes to respecting adults and peers, we really want to encourage children to have that level of respect when they get into school. There might be a different level of structure in the school environment than what their children are typically used to at home. So you might, kind of want to talk about that. Like, when you get to school, everybody's going to be expected to sit still in their chair, whereas at home you can get up and move around more. And that's going to be important because there's going to be jobs at school, like a line leader and the caboose of the line. And you might talk about why these jobs are important and even start practicing them at home. Like, okay, as we all go into the bathroom to brush our teeth, you're going to be the line leader and we're going to follow you. Show us the way to get there. So you can start using the language that they're going to be using in preschool or kindergarten at home to start making them comfortable and familiar with that language, so that once they get there, they do show that level of respect, especially when it comes to fitting into that structure of the school environment. Okay, we can move on to the next slide. So now we're talking about self-regulation. So when I say self-regulation, it kind of means exactly what it says: a child's ability to control their impulses, manage their emotions, adapt to expectations, and even handle some frustration. So we need to give them experience with these things, right? We need to let them be frustrated so that they can learn to manage that. And I think as parents, we're so conditioned to just want to jump in and help children when they're struggling with arts and crafts or feeding themselves or zipping a zipper, we want to jump in and help. But standing back a second, giving them a minute to actually struggle and actually try to problem solve is a great way to teach not only self-regulation, but some resilience too. So give them opportunities to manage their frustration. It's okay if they're struggling for a minute. And name that feeling too. Like, I can see you're getting frustrated, but you're also getting closer to getting that zipper up. So, encouraging them, keep trying. You also want coping skills. So you want to model coping. You might say out loud, I'm feeling really frustrated right now. So I'm going to take a deep breath and try to calm myself down. So they can see that you sometimes get frustrated too, and you're able to manage that emotion. When you do see your child using self-control and managing their frustration, definitely point it out. I can see you calmed yourself down and got the job done. That is a great skill. Good job. You might actually teach them some breathing strategies. Let's take a deep breath. Now blow it out. Okay, now let's try again. To kind of manage frustration. We want to make sure they have the ability to listen attentively. So, at home, you want to use short, clear directions. You might say, okay, first put on your socks and then put on your shoes and then put on your coat, and see if they can follow those three-step commands instead of just you're hurrying out the door. So let's just do it for them. So giving them the opportunity to, try some of those things and show that they can listen and follow those instructions that they will obviously be expected to do in school. To build this, you could play listening games like Simon Says, red light, green light, where they have to really wait and control their bodies until they get that verbal cue to move on to the next thing or to do something. So that's a skill that we're constantly working on, but you can definitely start that at home. So we also want to instill the ability to wait patiently. Maybe you start really small. It's snack time. Maybe you just wait 10 seconds before you put that snack down in front of them, and then wait a little longer and see if they have the patience to wait. You may give them actual waiting jobs. I'm going to have you hold this spoon until I need it to stir up these cookie batter or whatever. You might give them little jobs along the way where they have to do something and wait for you to give them the cue to move on to the next thing. You can use timers. You can, time different activities. When the timer dings, and it will be your turn. So they get that practice in waiting. And again, when you see them doing it, definitely praise it. I see that you waited. Great job. We want to model perseverance. We want to instill perseverance in our children before they go off to school. So we want to talk about encouraging them to try again if they're not successful the first time of trying something. When they are able to complete something, throw a party, make it a big deal, celebrate their efforts as well as their successes. I can see you're trying really hard and you should be really proud of that. Not just you did it, it's done, but celebrate the process along the way. Use language like try again, or no, you can't zipper your coat yet, but you will learn to do it, instead of just I can't zipper my coat. Use that word yet to encourage them that eventually they will learn these skills, and encourage them to keep trying. So you might want to use real life examples here of like telling them times when you couldn't do something and then you had to try again and try again, to give them that motivation. We can move on to the next slide. So the next topic is executive function. So this is a developmental milestone in children, where they are learning planning skills. They're able to remember instructions. They're able to really focus their attention, and they're able to complete a task. So when we're working, it's like that working memory and kind of pulling everything together for some higher level tasks and activities, which preschoolers are very capable of doing this at their level, at their age appropriate level. We want them to be able to follow directions and routines. You might plan activities together, like how are we going to get dressed tonight? What are you going to put on first? And how are we going to make it so that this goes well, whether it's a craft activity or a play activity? Ensuring that they can work independently is really important, so that we want to see that working memory and problem solving. So again, we want to give short, simple directions. We want to start with one step and build to multiple steps so that they can follow all of those things. So start giving multiple steps. Um, After dinner, you might say, okay, pick up your plate and put it in the sink, put your napkin in the garbage, and you can put your fork right into the dishwasher, and see if they can follow those 3 different steps without you having to say it again and again and again. And try it every night till it becomes more and more automatic and they're following those steps and they're showing some independence in those things. So giving short, simple directions, playing memory games is really great for executive function. You can play the verbal ones where you say like, I'm going on a picnic and I'm bringing, and you go, everyone adds a new thing, each letter of the alphabet, so they have to remember those words. Actual memory games with flipping the cards is great. I love playing big, like real life memory games where I'll hide things in kitchen cabinets and they have to go back and find, where did we hide the blue egg? It's where the spoons go, that type of thing where they see where you hide it and then they go back and find it. Great for gross motor too, because we really want to build those motor skills as well. Getting ready for school. Repeat and review things with your children. Use songs and rhymes as often as possible. You also want to try to do activities where you're really focusing their attention. So you might say, okay, I need listening ears and watching eyes, or quiet eyes and listening ears, or something like that. So you have their attention, because that's one thing the teachers are really going to appreciate is that if they're able to get the children's attention. So as you're noticing, we're really talking about these soft skills here tonight. We're not talking so much about the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, because those things really come much easier when all of these executive function and respect and being able to follow a routine are mastered. So these are the things that any kindergarten teacher, any early learning facility will tell you are really, really most important. And then the other stuff comes. Once they're attentive and working together, the other things really do come. So again, with that self-regulation, completing tasks, breaking things down into smaller activities for the children to practice. And you can incorporate letters and numbers and colors and simple math activities of using measuring cups and playing in the sink and measuring volume or doing those types of things in the bathtub. You can incorporate all of these turn taking and executive function and memory into those activities. So you're working on early learning and math and reading every day. All the while you're working on these perseverance, sustaining attention, and problem solving just being built in. We call that scaffolding play, where you're kind of adding and making it more difficult as you go. So that's kind of just a really quick and brief overview to some of the most important school readiness milestones we look for going into kindergarten or preschool. And I just want to say I'm going to give in the chat, I'm going to put the my website is stemstartsnow.com. And if you go to that, you can sign up with your baby's birth date, and that will generate a weekly newsletter tailored to your child's age. So it will very specifically say, your baby is 6 months. They're starting to roll over from back to front now, or like the specific milestones. It's completely free. You can go to the drop down menu and just choose other if you're not part of one of the organizations that subscribe to it. And there's tons more information on milestones and kindergarten readiness within the STEM Starts Now program. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat, and then I'm going to turn it over to Allison is next to talk about some potty training tips.
Thank you, Aimee, for all that great information and sharing your awesome resource with us for free. It's such an amazing deal. You guys should definitely take advantage of that. It's a really good one. So yes, I am going to be sharing today some tips in regards to potty training and how you can help your child transition from being maybe newly potty trained into a classroom environment where a lot of times schools, preschools, daycare centers, early learning centers might have certain requirements of your child as far as their potty use goes. And you might not have a ton of experience with that up to this point. So it's helpful to have some tips in your back pocket that you can pull out if things are a little bit rough going, but also to just to give you some things that you can use to help ease that transition for your child. And it was so nice to hear Aimee talking about a lot of the things that she brought up, because all of that transitions and trickles down into the potty learning atmosphere as well. So it's all applicable under that early childhood umbrella. So the first thing that I wanted to touch on with potty training is to develop some bathroom routines. So little kids especially, are creatures of habit, and they thrive on predictability. They thrive on routines and knowing what to expect. So it can be really helpful to make the transition feel easier and more seamless if they have a solid, reliable bathroom routine that they're used to. And the bathroom routine can be applied in two different ways. So there's a bathroom routine as far as times of using the day, times of day that you use the bathroom, and then also the routine of what happens once you're in the bathroom. So those are two very distinct but helpful things to keep in mind, that it's kind of broken down into two separate categories. So the first thing that you can do, because like how Aimee was talking a lot about self-regulation, self-initiation is something that's going to be really helpful for your child going into a school environment. Whereas at home, your child might be kind of dependent on you prompting them to go use the potty at specific times, or you kind of being the one to judge, those physical cues and urges that you might be seeing from them. And they might be a little bit reliant on that. So something that's helpful going into school, where they're not going to have you noticing all these subtle little things, and it's a classroom with a bunch of 10 to 20 other little kids running around with very few grown-ups to keep track of everything, is to work with them on how to recognize those urges and what they mean, and to take action by themselves. So this is going to start with you and your learning and assessing of your child's individual natural behaviors and urges. So you're going to be watching for these subtle little signs that they need to go. So things like, being squirmy, kind of crossing their legs, maybe suddenly becoming very still and quiet, or trying to run off and hide in a corner. All of these are little subtle signals that your child's body isn't giving them internally that they need to go use the bathroom. So when you notice these things happening and your child is kind of busy playing and caught up in something, you can help them recognize that and understand what that means and what their body's trying to tell them. So you can say something like, "Oh, Sam, I see that you're crossing your legs. That's your body telling you that you need to go potty. Come on, let's go sit." And you can prompt them in that way. And catching those signs early and responding consistently with that type of language is going to help them tune into their body signals. And then maybe after a few times of practicing that, they'll be like, "Oh, I'm crossing my legs. What does that mean? Oh, yeah, it means I need to go potty." And they can take that with them into the classroom so that they can be more independent. And then you're less likely to deal with accidents as well. Next, you're going to want to practice all the steps of using the potty. And I think what gets missed a lot in potty training is that it's a really complex set of skills. Like, potty training in itself is not just one skill, it's made up of a bunch of different things. So that means that you're going to want to start practicing all of these steps so that your child can be independent and confident and reliable with doing every aspect of potty training, potty use from start to finish. Even if they need a little assistance along the way, but you at least want to try to give them that baseline of what they need to be working towards. So when you're at home, instead of kind of being the one, like Aimee was saying, instead of being the one to kind of take over the process and, pull your kiddos' pants down for them and wipe them after they're done and helping them wash their hands, try to let them take over some of those steps on their own as much as you possibly can. And giving them some of that practice with pushing down their pants, climbing up to sit on the toilet, and wiping and flushing and washing their hands, and then, pulling their pants back up, all of the steps. Establishing that consistent routine in specific steps in a specific order is going to help them to it's really just going to help kind of reinforce the full process of potty use, so that once they're in the school setting, nothing feels unfamiliar, or, they don't feel too rushed because they know what's expected. They know what is supposed to be happening, and they're not going to miss any of those important steps because you've been practicing at home. And really, with little kids, having that repetition, having that practice is ultimately what's going to give them the confidence to be able to go into a different environment and do these things on their own. Um, Another thing that you can do, like we were talking about the routine in the bathroom, but another thing you can start doing is a routine with their potty use throughout the day. So, of course, we do want to reinforce those natural urges and their natural patterns of elimination during the day while they're at home. But school is a very routine based environment. So, there's a lot of stuff happening. Things happen at specific times. Your child probably is going to encounter something where at 10 o'clock every morning before snack, everybody lines up and uses the bathroom. After nap, everybody lines up and uses the bathroom. So this might not be something that they're necessarily used to while they're at home. So starting to establish that while you're at home, maybe you can, check in with your child's staff or their teachers to find out what that routine might loosely look like. So you can start establishing some of those set schedules in your own household will make that transition a little bit easier so that they'll come to expect a potty sit at certain times throughout the day. And then you'll be less likely to deal with accidents, and you'll be less likely to deal with resistance from them pushing back to using the potty, because it's just something you do. Just like before you go to bed, you brush your teeth, you put on your pajamas, just like before you go outside to play, you go use the bathroom. So it's something that can be really easily established. And again, just giving them that practice to make that the potty use part of their daily rhythm, and not just something that they wait to do in, when it's an emergency type situation, will just help them to have less to think about throughout the day, honestly. And it's less responsibility on their plate so that they can just be out, in the classroom doing their thing, using the potty at those set routines. Okay, so using the potty away from home can actually be kind of a big deal for little kids, especially if, your kiddo's been home up until this point and now they're starting school, and it might be, some of the first times that they're getting a lot of exposure to an exterior bathroom that they're not used to. So we want to make sure that we're able to get them comfortable with using the potty in places other than home, and, just having the toilet that they're used to at home, having the small floor potty. They're not going to have those small floor potties everywhere you go. So you're going to have to start giving your child some practice with using toilets, and even just letting them know that everywhere you go does have a toilet that you can use, so that they don't feel like they're left kind of helpless until the point where they have to hold it too long and have an accident. And a lot of kids do have a hard time with using bathrooms in other places, especially in like a public setting where there's a lot of stimuli and there's a lot of people or a lot of loud noises or different hard surfaces that they're not used to. It's a whole big kind of sensory overwhelm that can happen when you're in that type of space. So you definitely want to be trying to practice using different bathrooms outside the home when you're on little outings with your child. And I usually recommend starting in more low-key settings. So at first, friends' houses, family members' houses, grandma's house. You can use like a single stall type bathroom, maybe at the library or the mall. If you can find those family style bathrooms are really helpful. And then even just having you there with them in a louder, larger public bathroom space is going to give them some more confidence and exposure to that, so that the first time that that's happening to them isn't the first day of school when they feel a little nervous, and that can lead to some regressive behaviors and accidents and that type of thing. So we just want your child to understand that potties are everywhere. Potties come in all shapes and sizes, and that they all serve the same purpose and they do the same job. So just practicing this with them in these different places can make that potty time feel a little less scary when it's happening in the school environment. Now, if you can, this is a big one. If you can, if it's allowed, if you have an open house or a teacher meet and greet, or a day where you go and drop off your child's school supplies or something like that, make a point to visit the bathroom that your child will be using there at that visit, so that they can see what the space is going to look like. They can get some practice with sitting on the toilet that they're going to be using at school while you're there with them. show them all the steps, right? Like where the sink is, how to turn on the faucet. It might be different than the faucet that you use at home. The soap dispenser might be different. The towels might feel different. But giving your child some practice with that while you're able to be there with them is going to make it much easier when you have to drop them off for their first day and then they're left to kind of figure it out for themselves. So just remember that right now you are the caregiver that they feel the most comfortable with. So it's helpful if you are the one to experience these things with them for the first time. And also, I really want to reinforce that the kind of, talking to your child's teacher, getting them some exposure to the bathroom they'll be using there carries over into my next point, and that is to please remember to communicate with your child's teachers and staff about their potty habits, about their potty patterns. Find out what the school's routines are. Find out what their policy is regarding accidents. Have all of this information on hand in advance, and that can really kind of shape the way that you handle the potty training process at home and just make that transition easier. Because if your child's teacher is able to know things like, sorry, just want to mute that person. So if your child is able to, see, like, if they're not confident using the potty at home, you want to make sure you communicate that with your child's teachers and be honest with them about where your child stands with their potty training. Don't check the box that they're fully potty trained if they're not fully potty trained, because it's not going to support your child in all the ways that they need to be supported. So make sure you're honest with them. Make sure if your child has any special preferences about the bathroom or, their bathroom habits or routines, that is communicated in advance. The teacher's managing a lot in the classroom, so they might not be able to accommodate every small need, but even if they know these things in advance and can make these small notes, it's going to support your child better. So if they have any challenges or fears or, anything along those lines, your child's teachers are super well equipped to be able to, they've potty trained tons of kids, I'm sure. So they're going to be very well equipped to support your child through anything and any stage that they are at through the process. And then finally, you want to use positive, enthusiastic language. And it sounds really cheesy, but it really is true that your child picks up on your energy. So if you're going into the process feeling nervous and stressed and anxious and hesitant about sending them off to school, then your child is more likely to feel those feelings as well. But if you're going into it with a confident tone, feeling positive and encouraging, and you're empowering them, then they're more likely to pick up on that positivity, and that's going to just make it easier for your child that they can go into it with some self-confidence as well. Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about encouraging potty independence, which we touched on the first slide, but I wanted to give some specific tips that you guys can use, and then I'm going to pass it over to Sarah. So first, one of the best ways to help your child to succeed with their potty training while they're at school is obviously to get them independent with doing things first. And a lot of this involves some of the final steps of potty training, which generally involves a little bit more fine motor skill development and, obviously extra practice as well. So things like manipulating clothing, which is a fancy term for pushing their pants up and down or pushing their pants and underwear up and down. That takes a little bit of extra dexterity and practice. So you want to set your child up for success by sending them in with, looser fitting clothing with elastic waistbands that they're able to push down and pull up on their own successfully, without fussing with buttons or zippers and those types of things, or thick clothing. Things like wiping. A lot of schools might require your child to be fully potty independent, which means wiping has to come into play. And a lot of kids don't possess even the physical proportions to be able to do this really effectively and consistently until they're closer to 5 years old. So the balance and the reach around and the wiping from front to back, and then the folding of the toilet paper and It's a really complex thing to learn. I actually just put out a new YouTube video that's all about wiping if you want to check that out in more detail. But definitely want to be practicing that with your child at home, especially if that's going to be something that they're required to do at school. And then also, again, that self-initiation aspect. So helping them to recognize their body signals and responding to it. So basically, it all boils down to the more independent that your child is able to be at home, then the less they're going to have to rely on somebody's help at school, and they're going to be more self-reliant in the classroom. And that's just going to set them up for more success and fewer accidents, which is, I think, the goal that we're all looking for. Um, Another thing you can do if your child is feeling a little resistant in some of these areas is to reward and acknowledge all of their independent behaviors that they're doing. So, kind of like what Aimee was saying, in practicing a lot of these different skills, just bringing some positivity into it, making sure you're recognizing their efforts when they are actually trying something, even if it's not perfect, is huge. So, that's just going to build their confidence and send them off into the school environment as prepared as they can possibly be. So I hope that gives you a little bit of overview. I want to make sure we leave plenty of time for Sarah and questions, but um, if you guys need additional support with potty training, I offer consultations. I also have a full suite of online pre-recorded courses that you can check out, which I have a discount offer, especially for you guys tonight, of 25% off any course with code. I'll type it in the chat. The code is school ready 25, and that will get you 25% off any of my courses tonight. And if you have any questions, just save them to the end and we'll try to get those answered for you. But I'm going to pass the torch over to Sarah, who's going to share some of her amazing sleep tips.
Thank you, Allison, and Aimee too. We are going to go right into sleep and sleep routines. And what is really great about being last is that it really is culminating all of the tips that Aimee and Allison have shared with you already. So as you have already learned, routines are so helpful for our little ones. They thrive on routines and they thrive on structure. And it is part of that executive functioning skill. And that really transfers over to potty. It transfers over to sleep, right? It transfers over to getting dressed. So when we're talking about sleep routines, we are in the middle of summer and everybody in this Zoom and anybody watching the recording needs to give themselves grace because, as I mentioned in the beginning, even our routines in my house are very lax, and that's okay. As we start to approach the school year, reestablishing your sleep routines is going to be very helpful for your little ones to understand that sleep is coming. So I love to really tell them that the day is ending and that we are winding our body down and that we are going to now set the stage for sleep to begin. And when we're talking about sleep routines, it doesn't have to be anything elaborate, and really we can keep it age appropriate, right? So the younger our children are, the shorter and sweeter I like to keep it, especially with our kiddos who are in the toddler range, who love to ask for one more book and one more drink of water and 7,000 more kisses, and to extend that bedtime routine to be as long as possible. So we really want to try and keep those requests to a minimum and really put some limits on that so that we can get them to the end goal of actually falling asleep. And keeping that routine short and sweet is going to really be helpful in understanding what the order is, knowing that there's a fair, firm, and loving boundary to your routine, and knowing that there is an end to the routine, which is eventually sleep, right? That we're going to lay our heads on our bed and we are going to fall asleep. A really helpful tool that I use with a lot of my families, especially those in preschool age range, are visual schedules or cue cards when we are trying to manage routines, especially in the bedtime time period. If, again, in my house, I'm sure as many are of your homes, those with little ones may experience, bedtime is just a really, it's an exhausting time, right? We're tired. Maybe we have worked all day. We've taken care of the kids all day. The kids are tired, right? Maybe they are coming home from camp. If we're back in school, right? We're coming home from daycare or school, and everybody just wants to be done, right? Mom and dad want to get the rest of their stuff done so they can go to sleep. They just want the kids to be done. And we can see what the type of tension this creates to just get the bedtime routine finished. So having cue cards can be really helpful. I have these handy, I actually have them because we use them in my house. And this can be really helpful to keep the routine moving and to put a limit on those limitless requests that we often get from our children. So starting with, we take our bath, we put on our PJs, we use the potty, and we use all those great tips from Allison. We brush our teeth, and as we're moving through this, we're removing all of our cards so that when we ask for 17 more XYZ, it's no longer available. The potty is now sleeping. The potty went to bed. We are not using the potty anymore, and it is time to actually get in our bed and go to sleep. This can be something that you can start to reincorporate, or even just start to incorporate if it's not anything that you have done yet in your household. You will start to see that kids love to use the cue cards. They love the idea of a routine and knowing that this comes next and I know what to expect. And I understand that I am going to love sleep and my cozy, cuddly bed and sleeping all night long. Another suggestion for your sleep routines, especially as we're approaching the school year, is to slowly bring bedtime earlier, just to adjust to school wake up times. This really, I know we have people from all over the country who are on this call, and I know that school start time really varies depending on where you're located, right? So some schools do start soon in the next couple of weeks. Other schools aren't starting until after Labor Day. So what I would say is about a week or so before your school start time, what if you have let bedtime inch later and later, and if you have let wake up time inch later and later, and you're panicking about that, how am I going to get my kids up to, be ready to get on the bus or to get ready to go to daycare or school? What I want you to do is every night, I want you to shift bedtime earlier, about 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be a huge leap. And then I also need you to do that in the morning. So we want to start waking our kiddos up, which is the worst. Normally, I'm not the type of person to recommend waking any sleeping children, but in order to help their body adjust to a time shift, we do want to wake them early in the morning so that they do have the sleep pressure appropriate to an earlier bedtime. And this is going to set them up really well so that when they do have to wake up at that, let's say 6:30 or 7 o'clock hour for that first day of school, they are not groggy and they're not grumpy and they are ready to take on the day. Allison, you can go to the next slide. All right, so let's talk about some bedtime habits. And this is a little bit of an extension of that sleep routine. So what happens if your children aren't strong sleepers? So we have the routine, we've set it up, right? And we put them in bed, but they're not great sleepers. They have trouble falling asleep. Maybe they're up multiple times a night and they wake up really early in the morning, or they need a lot of assistance from their parents in order to make it through the entire night. This is a really great time to establish independent sleep habits. So the start of a new school year is a really great opportunity to say, hey, just as your teachers are going to teach you all of these wonderful new things this school year, and just as we, as these experts, have taught you all of these wonderful new tips for development and potty and sleep, this is an opportunity to teach your children new sleep habits. So the biggest key to your children sleeping through the entire night, now this is from babies, this is all the way through, like I mentioned earlier, I work with children through 8 years old, but this is through even later elementary years and then into the teenage years. The biggest indicator of a child who is going to sleep through the night is a child who can fall asleep on their own at bedtime. So when I mean on their own is they are in their room and there is nobody who needs to lay down next to them. If we're talking about tiny little babies, like nobody needs to rock them completely to sleep and put them in their crib. If we're talking about a 4 or 5 year old, nobody needs to sit in the chair and rub their back until they're completely asleep. They are able to go into their bed with confidence and say, good night, I love you so much, I'll see you in the morning. You're able to walk to the door, turn out the light, and wave good night to them as well, and they can put themselves to sleep from an awake state. So if this is happening, you have a better chance at them making it through the entire night, because when they transition sleep cycles, which we do often, we transition sleep cycles about every 2 or 3 hours throughout the night, all night long. And when we transition those sleep cycles, we very briefly wake up, check our surroundings, make sure they're the exact same way as when we fell asleep. and then we go back to sleep. If they're not the same way, meaning if mom and dad are not there sitting on a chair rubbing our back or laying next to us, we are going to wake up completely. Survival mode is going to turn on, and we're going to go look for mom and dad to recreate that condition to go back to sleep. So what we want to do is make sure that our children feel really confident in the skill of going to sleep on their own. The really cool part is that you can sleep train older kiddos, and it really doesn't mean cry it out. So when we think about sleep training, we think about, like, a lot of the misconception is that it's just a 5 or 6 month old baby and it means cry it out, and that's it. And there's something that it couldn't be further from the truth. You can sleep train older kiddos. I think my percentage is like 0.5% of the families I've worked with have actually chosen to use that method. So it is not a method that I even have in my toolbox to offer. There are many other methods that we can use to be really supportive and involved and create positive behavior support around teaching independent sleep habits. And one that I love is the chair method. So you can go over to my YouTube page. All the information for that will be on the last slide, and check out my video on the chair method, which is a really great tool to help older kiddos learn those independent sleep skills. Okay, you can go to the next slide, Allison. And then why? So, like, what's the point of all of this, right? And I think this is a really great way to close out the informational part of our presentation. So our kids need sleep. They need sleep. And there's so many reasons why. And I just put some averages from the National Sleep Foundation. So kids ages 3 to 5 need about 10 to 13 hours total. Usually around the age of 3, we're dropping naps. So this would be generally throughout the night. Kids ages 6 to 10 need about 9 to 12 hours total of overnight sleep. This is consecutive hours of sleep, and they need this for brain development, growth. So actually our growth hormones are secreted or released during our sleep phases. Our immune system, it kicks on in higher amounts during our sleep. We need sleep for learning and memory and emotional regulation and focus and moods. So all of these things that we were talking about, that Aimee taught us, that Allison taught us, we are going to be setting up our kids for so much success when we have a brain that's fully rested, because they are going to be in a position to have their brain like a sponge to learn, right? Now think about, like, when you're not sleeping, it's really hard for us to learn. It's really hard for us to be in a great mood. It's hard for us to participate in the way that we can show up when we have a solid 8 or 9 or even 10 hours of sleep. Like I love to get. It's not a reality, but that would be great if that was a reality in my house. And then the last point is stable energy levels too. So what I really want to close out with is just, thinking about your little ones and their overall sleep needs. And some families I'll hear from, they'll say, like, oh my gosh, my kid is just like so wired, like all day long. They'll run all day. There's nothing we can do. We'll be at the park for hours, be at the pool for hours. And I don't even attend to bedtime until 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And then even then we're only sleeping 7 hours a night. And what the takeaway from that is, they're actually overtired. So what's happening is that child is probably running on adrenaline and cortisol, so an excess amount of their awake hormones, because they're not sleeping well. So sleep will reduce those awake hormones. It reduces those cortisol and adrenaline levels that we see in our waking hours. And if we're not sleeping well, we're going to see those awake hormones build up in excess, and that results in a child who presents as really wired, right? So it's really important to maintain healthy sleep habits so that we have a really well-rounded opportunity for our children to learn and grow and take advantage of all of these wonderful things that you were presented with tonight. If you would like more information about working one-on-one with me, we'll go to the next slide, and I'll give you can look up my information, then I'll have all of everybody else kind of give their information too. So you can see we have lots of places you can contact us. I'm going to do my plug, and then I'll let everybody else go. I will be sending all of my resources in an email. So please be on the lookout for my email from Sarah. at yourzenbabysleep.com. If you don't see it in your inbox in the next day or two, make sure you check your spam, because sometimes it ends up in spam. And that's where I'm going to be sending you a special discount code for my one-on-one, either Ask Me Anything calls for sleep or my one-on-one full support sleep packages. And I also will include in there the link to the chair method and then my favorite products like this as well. Allison and Aimee, did you want to give any information about your contacts, or do you want to hop right into questions?
Yeah, I'll just quickly say, if anyone is interested in any additional trainings, I do have my PQuest number. So if you are in Pennsylvania and you are looking for CEUs for a childcare center for STARS status, I do lots of different trainings. I have about 15 different trainings that I do on everything from autism to child development, early STEM, to teach early STEM. So I will put just my email in the chat. It's on here as well. If anyone's interested, you could certainly reach out for those presentations, workshops. We all do keynotes as well. So we would love to, come work with your organizations if we could help in any way.
Yeah, and to follow up with that also, I will be sending out a recording of this presentation today. So if anybody wasn't able to make it, or if you had to leave early or something like that, I will be sending a recording from my email address, which is info@pottytrainingconsultant.com. So please, again, make sure you whitelist that or check your spam if you don't see it within the next couple of days. And that recording will be available to you. Also, like Aimee was saying, if anybody works for a daycare facility or a preschool or a school yourselves, I've been doing a lot of workshops for parents of school settings to try to, get them in gear for you guys to help things out and help the process along, give some, collaborative tools that you guys can use together. So if there's any interest there, I'm more than happy to set that up for you. Free resources I have on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Find me in all the places and check my website if you guys need something specific that we didn't get to touch on here today. So, Aimee, did you want to moderate some questions if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask?
Absolutely. So I think the easiest way would be to just unmute and ask your question. If you're unable to do that, you could certainly put it in the chat and we can try to answer some questions now. We have about 8 minutes left. We definitely want to respect your time, keep it within the hour, but go right ahead if anyone has any questions. Yes. Is that Natalia? Yes. Do you have a question? I think you're muted. Are you able to unmute? We can't hear you.
Oh, how about now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so as I was saying, I'm a toddler assistant, and we just got approval to do a little mini potty training for our toddlers. So like, how would I introduce it to like a 1-year-old, like a toddler itself? Because I want to make sure I make the whole experience positive for them in
Yeah.
every way.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my big thing when introducing the concept of potty training to a child is to keep it low pressure and to keep it stress free with no expectation of performance right off the bat. So it's going to be a lot about exposure and just creating positivity surrounding the potty and potty training. So I like to start off with reading potty books together with kids, watching potty videos. There's some great ones, singing songs about it, just giving them some practice with sitting on it, even if they're fully clothed at first, just to give them some, give them that exposure in a way that feels like, okay, it's safe. There's no pressure on me to do anything. And just doing that gradually over the course of time will make it seem way less scary and way less like a huge deal when it comes time to actually remove diapers and for them to use the potty themselves, because it'll be normalized. If it's talked about far in advance, it'll be something that they're already familiar with. So that's really the best way. And that's a great age to start thinking about introducing that concept as well, because doing it from, I like to do it from the time that they can sit independently on their own, actually. So it just becomes just another thing that you do, just kind of like brushing teeth or sitting down at the table to eat your meal or going to bed at a specific time. It just all is very normalized. And doing that in the school setting, I think could be really powerful too, because they'll see their peers doing it and they'll see it coming from you. So I think that's super helpful.
Okay. Okay, that does help. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Do we have any other questions?
I have a potty question.
Okay.
Go for it.
So my daughter is 4 years old and she has Down syndrome, but she is potty trained.
Okay.
The only problem is at home and at school, she can be resistive to it.
Okay.
We tell her, okay, it's time to go potty, and she like throws a fit, doesn't want to go, says she doesn't have to, even though we know it's time for her to go.
Okay.
I had originally, I don't like bribing or, rewarding in, different ways, but we ended up using Miss Rachel as like, okay, if you go potty, then you can watch my phone for 5 minutes or watch Miss Rachel or whatever cartoon she liked.
Okay.
And that seemed to work. And then I tried to fade it, and I'm not sure if that was part of it, but there was also then the resistance of giving me my phone back after
Yes.
that 5 minutes.
Yes. Yeah, I find that the screen time can really lead to a lot of those power struggles. But it sounds like, so if you're making sure that you're only taking her to the potty when you really observe those physical cues that she definitely needs to go, instead of trying to, predict when she might need to go, because that's sometimes when kids get frustrated. They're like, why are you making me stop what I'm doing when I don't even really need to go? Try to make sure it's like around a transitional time if possible, so that she's not having to stop an activity where that might, lead to some extra resistance. So if you can do it during, if you can kind of prepare her a little and give her some advance notice, like, okay, as soon as you're done putting the blocks away, it's going to be time to sit on the potty, so that you can give her a bit of warning that it's coming, to help her mentally prepare. And then choices. I love, a good age appropriate choice is a really great way to kind of squash any power struggle that might come up. So using the potty in itself might not be the choice, but maybe it's, which bathroom she uses, or which toy she takes with her while she goes, or what song you guys sing together while she sits. Trying to present it in a way to give her some control over the situation back might take some of that resistive behavior out of it. But also don't feel bad about using a reward, because there's a lot of I know there's a lot of conflicting advice out there about rewards, but I've done tons of research on the topic, and most of the research shows that the benefits of using rewards outweighs any risks of using rewards. So if she does seem reward driven, then I think that that's something that you could run with for sure, just until she gets in a really nice consistent habit of using the potty on her own without having to be prompted by you to do that. Maybe it doesn't have to be the screen time thing, so that you don't run into the struggle with turning it off when the time comes, but finding something else, like a small motivator of some sort that she can work towards for using the potty without being resistant.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Good luck.
Thanks.
Allison's being very humble too. I just want to put in a plug for her. She wrote a book. It's called The Adaptive Toolkit for Potty Training Children with Disabilities, and it's fabulous. So I'm going to put the link in here for anybody who's interested in purchasing her book. It's wonderful. I think it's comprehensive. I read it myself. Even though I didn't need, and I've commented a little bit on it too. So
Yes,
there's a little
Sarah's
bit of
in
me
there.
there. There's a little bit of me in there also. But Jess, I think that would be so. I know, like, I'm not, the time it takes to read it, I think is something that should be set aside, because it is a very comprehensive piece of literature for you if you're looking for something like that with your daughter.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. Yes.
I have another question as well, for because like I said, for toddlers specifically, how do I help them? Like, what can I do? Like, what kind of games can I provide for my students when they have like these big emotions, like big frustrations in the, or how to teach them to be patient itself? Because I know they're still learning. It's like a first step for them, and I want to make it as easy and as nice as possible.
And this is toddler age.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you're looking for mostly help with turn taking.
Yeah, like turn taking. Like right now, I have like two toddlers. They're about to be two, and literally like
Okay.
one's turning two in like a couple of days, and the other's turning two in like one more month. But they
Okay.
have like big emotions, and they
Sure.
just like I'm just trying to like just breathe. I'm trying to like use blow the
Yeah.
flowers or blow
Yeah.
dandelions.
That's okay. So they might be there. That's great to start introducing those concepts, but they're probably going to be a little bit young to be very effective with those strategies. So I would say at that age, you really want to just make sure you have something for everybody, that
Hmm.
everybody has a toy in their hand. If they have to wait a turn, it needs to be a very short period of time at that age. That they, have something to do during that time, even. I love instrument play for children at that age, things where everybody has an instrument, they're playing collaboratively. And if you want to start working on some turn taking, it might just be everybody stays silent while one person plays for just 2 or 3 beats and then on to the next person. So that you're getting a little bit of turn taking, but it's a very short period of time and everybody has something in their hand and you constantly are reiterating, it will be your turn next. You will have a turn next. If it's something that you can do, like arts and crafts wise, that they can each have a job that is part of it. Maybe somebody uses a glue stick and the next person picks up the cotton and puts it in the glue, or something where they're each working together, but they have their job ready and they know they're going to get their turn next. Is usually really helpful to keep it as tangible as possible at that age.
Okay, tangible as possible.
Yeah, just make sure they just have something in their hand so they know they're going to get their turn and they feel included and they feel involved because they're a little young yet to understand that concept of,
Yeah.
waiting, sharing, and it's great that you're starting to use that language and starting to model that. But they're going to still need to feel like they're extremely included.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Great questions. So we're 2 minutes over. I don't want to go too late. You have all of our contact information, so please do not hesitate to reach out with any additional questions or requests. We would love to come, talk more or come to your facilities or centers if there's anything we can help with. So thanks again for taking some time out of your evening to spend with us. Sarah or Allison, do you have anything else before we head out of the call?
Again, just a huge thank you for everyone to come out tonight. This was our first time doing this as a trio here, so we were really happy to be able to chat with everybody tonight and are looking forward to doing more of these workshops in the future. And I hope that you guys find our resources helpful. And again, if you need anything else, we are always here to help. So thank you.
Ditto to everything. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Enjoy the rest of your summer.
Yep.
Yes.
Hey, good luck with starting school. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.